we shall learn how to think in English. First of all, why should we think in English? That is the most important part. Why should we think in English? This is a great way to improve our spoken English. We can improve our spoken English only by the help of thinking in English. What happens, first of all, whenever you go to talk to an important person, you just try to think in Hindi. It takes time for you to translate. So you cannot get proper communication. For that, you have to start thinking in English right from the beginning. You can start thinking in such a way in your daily life because, for example, if you are traveling by the train or bus, then describe the people around you in your mind, not aloud. You can describe in your mind. Don't make sound. You can think of them. For that, even though you might not like hearing your own voice, but this is a very useful way to find out what's wrong with your spoken English. Make a note of all the things you do well when you speak English. If you are feeling unmotivated, look at the things you do well to feel great about speaking English again. Record your speaking and then listen to that record, or ask a native speaker for some advice. Did you understand? Record your thoughts in English before you go to sleep at night. You can play the record at the end of the year to look back on important events, because you have been speaking Hindi since your childhood. Now the question arises, how can you start thinking in English? You have to take it very seriously, because whenever you go to talk to a great personality in English, you feel hesitation. Why does it happen? It's just because of the environment. This is only because of your thinking in Hindi. You do think in Hindi and then you try to translate into English. It takes time for that. There you cannot get proper communication. The person cannot understand your language. For that, you have to think in English. If you are asking to someone, what are you doing now? The person can answer as soon as possible according to your speaking. Your sound says itself that what you want to ask. For that, you should have proper pronunciation. Structures are very much important, because if you remember structure, all the structure in a systematic way, that can be very helpful for you to be fluent in English forever. Because right now, it's not possible, because you all have completed tense. If I ask you right now, present tense, past tense, future tense, only by knowing tense, you cannot be fluent in English. Only by the help of tense and voice, you cannot be fluent in English. You can complete within a very short time. You can complete within 2 to 3 days. By knowing tense, you cannot be fluent in English. Only by the help of tense and voice, you cannot be fluent in English. You can complete within a very short time. You can complete within 2 to 3 days about tense and voice. But what about the structures? That should be in your mind forever. Structures are very much important. For an example, I have to think in English. I had to think. These are the structures. I have to think in English. I had to think in English. I will have to think in English. I should think in English. I should have thought in English. I can think in English. I could have thought in English. I want to think in English. I would like to think in English. I need to think in English. These are the structures that you need to keep in your mind forever. Because the moment you go anywhere, nowadays, whenever you go for the interview, they will ask you only in English. They will not use any other language except English. So they will ask you, do you speak English? Whenever you go for the interview, what are the steps should be taken by you during interview? You have to think in English so that you can answer according to their question. If you think in Hindi, you will try to translate, it takes time. So it's very much important for you to think in English. How can you think in English? You have to start today onwards. For the next day program, what are you going to do? Like for an example, tomorrow you have to go to school, you have to go to your college, you have to go to Mumbai, you have to go somewhere else. You have to make routine, like you have to think in English for the next day program. And what did you do in the last day that you can write on a paper in English, so that it will take one place in your mind forever. You can think in English. Otherwise, what happens, it's not possible for you to be fluent in English. It can help you a lot for you to improve your spoken English. I hope you did understand. But first of all, you have to start today onwards. Think for the next day in English. And what did you do yesterday that should be taught by you in English? You should think about the last day and next day. Last day, what did you do? Where did you go? Whom did you meet? All the things you have to think in English. And what are you going to do in the next day? That should be taught by you in English. You have to think in English for the next day program. And what are you thinking for your bright future? If somebody says you go to attend the classes, you do listen carefully. You have to listen carefully. Because if we consider carefully, we shall arrive at the conclusion that this is the way by which you can be fluent in English. We have to start thinking in English. For that, very simple sentence is, I'm going there. I could not talk there. This way you can think in English for the, what did you do? What was the problem with you to perform on the stage, that you got an opportunity to be on the stage and you could not perform? You can think, you can consider all the things in English. I hope you did understand. Did you understand? So thank you very much. Now I would like you all to speak about the same topic what I spoke right now. Thank you.